What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, interesting story. As undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning World Boxing Organization, better known as the WBO welterweight world champion, widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Bud Crawford. Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no losses, no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout. He is 34 years of age, 5'8", with a 74-inch arm reach. Terence Crawford was on hand for a close friend and stablemate in former WBO junior welterweight world champion, star boxer Maurice Mighty Mo Hooker, as Maurice Mighty Mo Hooker took on welterweight star title contender Blair Cobbs, okay, in which Maurice Hooker, he lost. He got dropped 3 times and he lost a unanimous decision to Blair Cobbs. But Terence Crawford was on hand. He helps prepare Maurice Hooker. He helps train Maurice Hooker. Maurice Hooker trains with his trainer manager Brian Bomac McIntyre. So, he was on hand, for that, and fans was they saw him and they was approaching him. But interesting is that he continued to get mistaken for undefeated welterweight title contender, prospect, a good friend of mine's and his, in Tyrone James. Okay, Tyrone James is an undefeated fighter, 12 wins, no losses, no draw, 9 wins by way of knockout. He's 31 years of age, 5'10", with a 73-inch arm reach, okay? Oddly enough, Tyrone James and Terence Crawford are very good friends. Tyrone James is Terence Crawford's sparring partner. He's a very good fighter, and he signed to Star Boxing, right? He's out of New York. I personally knew Tyrone James since he was 7, 8 years old in the boxing gyms in New York, okay? He grew up in New York in the boxing gyms in New York. I knew him for a very long time. He actually came up with, the late great boxer that transitioned in Patrick Day. Okay, they came up in the same circles, same gyms, and trained. They sparred against each other. Tyrone James and Patrick Day, the late great Patrick Day. Okay, and so with that said, Terence Crawford is taking pictures with fans, and fans are confusing him with Tyrone James. Okay, which I thought was hilarious, because Tyrone James and Terence Crawford look nothing alike. Absolutely nothing alike. Look at Tyrone James, right? He looks nothing like Terence Crawford. And Terence Crawford continues to get mistaken for Tyrone James. They look nothing alike. Nothing alike. Tyrone James is much taller than Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford has extremely long arms, 74-inch arms, but Tyrone James Jackpot, okay, is his nickname, and Terence Crawford look nothing alike. So for fans to, confuse Terence Crawford, who's considered the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, with Tyrone James, who's, I know at 31 years of age, you don't say he's a prospect, but Tyrone James, he has shoulder surgery, I believe, and set him back a bit. And, he's with Star Boxing here in New York. And, he's a very, very good fighter. Tyrone James could be one of the best fighters in the world. I'm not saying that because I knew him since he was 7, 8 years old. I'm not saying that because he's from New York. I'm saying that because of his skill set and his talent. Tyrone James could be one of the best fighters in the world. Now, he's 31 years of age, okay? So, obviously, time is not on his side. But it's ironic. It's pretty ironic to me that Tyrone James is Terence Crawford's sparring partner, okay, and good friend of his. And if you look at Terence Crawford, okay, and you look at Tyrone James, they look nothing alike. Look at Terence Crawford. Hey, you look at Terence Crawford, you look at Tyrone James. They don't resemble. Now, the only thing I can think of is that people seen Terence Crawford with Tyrone James because, again, they're very, very good friends, okay? Not just sparring partners, but they're very, very good friends. And Terence Crawford is like a big brother to Tyrone James and a mentor to Tyrone James. So I can see if maybe people see them together and they mistaken, but Terence Crawford is the pound for pound best fighter in the world, okay? And now I saw people, I thought it was, jokes. I thought it was all in fun. But then, you have people obviously going to take this and, they're using it against Terence Crawford to say, well, you see, nobody even knows who they mistaken Terence Crawford for 12-0 prospect in Tyrone James. And, Terence Crawford is in negotiations for the biggest fight in the sport of boxing between himself and undefeated, unified WBC, WBA, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, who's widely considered by many to be top 2, if not the #1 best pound for pound fighter in the world, and Errol the True Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. 28 wins, no loss and no draw, 22 wins by way of knockout, 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. What's oddly enough is this though. I can see people mistaking Tyrone for Errol Spence more so than Tyrone being mistaken for Terence Crawford, right? I could see that comparison, more so than I could see people mistaking Terence Crawford for Tyrone James. I could see that people saying, "Hey, these dudes look alike." You know what I mean? If you're gonna mistaken anybody for Tyrone James, I could see people saying, "Hey, Errol Spence, resembles Tyrone James more so than Terence Crawford by far." Okay, by far, I don't even think that it's much of a comparison. You just look at Errol Spence, their skin complexion, well, now Errol Spence has his hairstyle compared to that of Terence Crawford's, and Tyrone has more of a high fade, and it's blonde at the top, right? So I can see that comparison. Somebody may say, "Hey man, Errol Spence," on the height, the skin complexion, skin tone, hairstyle. I would see that comparison way more than I could see people confusing Tyrone James with Terence Crawford. And that's just not. That's just completely, way off. I could even see people saying that, that Tyrone James looked like Jamel Charlo, right? He looks like Jamel Charlo. His hairstyle, his style overall is like that of Jamel Charlo. You know what I mean? So if you look at Jamel Charlo and Errol Spence, that I could see that, with Tyrone James, his hairstyle, but to see Terence Crawford is way off, unless, again, like I said, people see them together. Now, as far as the negotiations and people saying, well, you see, nobody even knows who Terence Crawford is, and he's demanding a 50-50 split with Errol Spence, who's clearly the A side in the negotiations. Errol Spence is the biggest star. I mean, the numbers don't lie. The numbers tell us that Errol Spence is the biggest star. We know Errol Spence is the biggest star. He does the bigger numbers. He's done bigger pay-per-view numbers, bigger live gates, so on and so forth. But as far as this goes in comparison, I just look at it in all funny games, man. And Terence Crawford was laughing about it. And he even stated, this Tyrone James kid, he must be good. So he said it was 2 to 3 times that people is very strange, right? It's very odd because Tyrone James is not a household name, you know what I mean? To be confusing him with Terence Crawford, you know what I mean? But I guess people know who he is. It's a jackpot, you know what I mean, on Instagram. So I thought it was hilarious. Terence Crawford said, man, this Tyrone James kid, he must be real good. He keep getting compared to me. Tyrone James is real good. All jokes aside, Tyrone James could be one of the best fighters in the world. That's truth. Okay, Tyrone James, he works, he's not fully 100% committed to the sport of boxing. He works a 9 to 5. If he was fully committed to the sport of boxing, I used to watch Tyrone James at 12 years old, dominating grown men, professional boxers in the gym and sparring. At 11 and 12, 13 years old, I used to watch him dominate professional boxers and grown men in the boxing gym. I watched him spar one grown man, and he started toying with him. Dude was 5 wins, no loss, no draw, 4 wins by way of knockout. Tyrone was about 13 years of age, maybe 14. And he was sparring this dude, much bigger. Dude was fighting at 154, I believe, at junior middleweight. Tyrone, at this time, he was probably 130 pounder, 135 pounder at best. Now he's filled out to a welterweight, but at that time, maybe 135, 130, 135 pounds. And they sparred out in the gym in Westbury, New York. And Tyrone beat the brakes off of this dude, Puerto Rican fighter. He beat the absolute brakes off this dude to the point where dude started to get frustrated, started to want to wrestle with him. Like I said, dude was a much more, Tyrone is tall, you know, he's 5'10", he got a 73-inch arm reach, so he got extremely long arms. He's got a wiry frame like Terence Crawford. But the dude was more solid, you know, shorter than he was, but he was like a Sean Porter, but, you know, like built like a Sean Porter, right? And the dude started getting frustrated with Tyrone and started trying to wrestle him, man. And man, I seen Tyrone, everybody was saying, hey, that's enough, his father, Tyrone James' father, was in the gym. It's in Westbury, New York. This is a true story. And people were saying, that's enough, man. This dude's a professional. Tyrone was still in the amateurs. That's enough to break it up, man. He getting serious. And Tyrone was like, nah, let him go. And Tyrone hit him with the weirdest 3-piece I ever saw. He hit him with a straight right hand. The dude bounced off the ropes. And when he bounced off the ropes, he tried to duck. I guess he thought that Tyrone was going to throw a left hook. And Tyrone James threw a punch behind his back where the dude was ducking to his right. So Tyrone hit him with a straight right hand. The dude bounced off the ropes and leaned to his right. And Tyrone went behind his back and caught the dude, boom! And stood the dude back up. And when he stood back up, he caught him with a right hook, boom! And when he caught him with the right hook, the dude just grabbed him and tried to slam him. And everybody ran the ring and they stopped it. And, oh, he's showboating, he's showing off. But you gotta I gotta keep him in mind that the dude was probably about 22, 23 years old. Tyrone was 13, 14 at max, at best. And he's tall and wiry frame, and at best he was 130 to 135 pounder. This dude was a junior middleweight and already a professional, and it was a heavy hitter. I don't know what happened to that dude, Puerto Rican boxer. I don't remember what happened to him. I don't know how his career panned out, but I know, Tyrone James is very, very skilled and very, very talented. So Terence Crawford keeps getting mistaken for Tyrone James, oddly enough. But that's all I got for y'all, man. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like your shitty videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.